Hello students and welcome to the lecture. So students, as we know, hello students and welcome to the lecture. So students, as we know that we had started the previous year questions of various topics and we had started the economics part in the previous lecture. Okay. So in this lecture, we are going to continue with the economics. Again, I will say the same thing. We will learn some new topics. We will revise the topics we had already covered, and also we will come to know about the factors, like what type of questions asked in the examination. Okay. And last thing is that we are going to follow the same rule of 40, 30, 20 and 15 seconds as per the question. Okay. So let's start. First question for today we have is, during a periods of inflation, tax rate should increase, decrease, remain constant or fluctuate. 40 seconds I am giving you. Okay, because it is an analytical type of question, so that's why I provided you 40 seconds and your time starts now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. Your time's up. So the correct answer is A. During the periods of inflation, a tax rate should be increased. Okay. So if we talk about inflation, then what do you mean by it? Inflation is basically the rise in general price level. Okay, whenever there is a rise in general price level, it is inflation. Okay, suppose if there is rupees 10 a price for a commodity, but then it's become rupees 20. So what happens here? The general price of that particular commodity is rises, due to which it's become a part of inflation. Okay, so basically when we are talking about the inflation, then the general phenomena behind the inflation is demand is greater than the supply. It is the most general phenomena. Okay, whenever there is a demand higher than the supply, there will always be a condition of inflation. Okay, so next question is, what is the main factor which increases the demand for the commodities? So basically it is the factor of money, or you can say money circulation. Whenever there is a high money circulation in the market, it means that people will earn or get more money. Okay, and when they get more money, they will start demanding the things. Okay, but if we looked at the facts and figures, then we will find that the money supply leads to the increase in demand, but from the supply factor there is no such increase in comparison with the demand. So that's why demand is higher than the supply and the inflation prevailed in. Okay, so the tax rate which are generally applied on the loans, if the tax rate will goes high, then people will take less loan, and when the people will take less loans, the money circulation will be decreased, and automatically there will be a condition of equilibrium, which means demand will fall down and come in accordance with the supply. All right, so that's why tax rate should be increased during the inflation. Okay, to check the money circulation in the market. All right, now the next question we have is, which is the biggest tax paying sector in India? Agriculture sector, which is a part of primary sector; industrial sector, which is a part of secondary sector; transport sector, which is a part of services; banking sector, also a part of services. For this type of question, 40 seconds I am providing you, and also I have given you the biggest hint I could, and your time starts now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. Your time's up. So the correct answer is B. Industrial sector is the biggest thing sector. Now the concept is, if we talk about the agriculture sector, then nearly about 45% of working population in today's term. And when I'm talking about working population, then basically I'm talking about the people which lies between 15 years to 60 years of age. Okay. So about 45% of working population is engaged in the agriculture sector. And the biggest sector is service sector, or you can say tertiary sector. Then why I am saying that the industrial sector is the biggest thing sector? It does not have the maximum participation. It does not have its maximum share in the GDP. Then why? Because the income generated in the industrial sector is bigger than the agriculture and service sector. Okay. And if income is high, then tax will automatically high. Okay. For example, if rupees 1000 is your income at 10% interest, okay, then you will pay 100 rupees. Okay. But if 10,000 is your income at same rate, you will pay 1000 rupees. Okay. So that's why always remember, whenever the income will high, the tax will high. And that's why industrial sector is the biggest tax paying sector. Okay. Now let's move forward. Now third question we have, economics is what it ought to be. This statement refers to normative economics, positive economics, monetary economics, and fiscal economics. 40 seconds you have to answer this question, and your time starts now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. Your time's up. So basically it's a part of normative economics. Okay. Now if we really want to answer this question, then what should be our approach? We first know about the normative economics, the positive economics, the monetary economics, the fiscal economics. If we are aware with this type of economics, we will be aware about this statement and why it falls under this one, normative economics. Okay, so let's start our discussion over this topic. So first, if we talk about the normative economics, then basically it is ideologist economics. Okay, it generally deals with the facts that how the things should be done, not in the fact how the things are going on. Okay, it generally deals with how the things should be done. So that's why it is the ideologist economics. Okay, positive economics is basically the real-time economics. What is exactly going on? Okay, it deals with the real-time scenario. Okay, when we talk about the monetary economics, it basically deals with the money supply, primarily deals with the money supply. Okay, like the inflation and deflation which we had discussed. Okay, when we talk about the fiscal economics, then basically it deals with the financial terms, or you can say expenditure and revenue. Okay, so remember the inflation and deflation part are belong to money supply. Okay, but the tax rates are belong to fiscal economics. All right. So when we're talking about this statement, like economics is what it out to be. Okay. So if you read this statement carefully, you will find out that it's belong to the ideologist approach. Okay. And as we have come to know about that, the ideologist economics falls under the term of normative economics. So that's why this statement clearly belongs to normative part. Okay. Now I hope it's become clear in your mind. Okay. Now let's move forward. So the fourth question we have, the excess of price a person is to pay rather than forego the consumption of the commodity is called price, profit, producer surplus, or consumer surplus. 40 seconds you have. Read this question successfully and then give the answer. Your time starts now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. Your time's up. The correct answer is C. Producer surplus. How? If you read this question carefully, you will find excess of price person is paying rather than forego the consumption of commodity. Basically, it says the consumption of commodity is less than the price paid. Okay, it means that you are paying rupees 100 for something, but the utility and usage of that particular commodity is only about rupees 50. So it means that about rupees 50's excess amount you had paid to the producer. Okay, so it is a loss for consumer, because as we have seen, he is paying more but getting less, but it is a profit for producer because he is supplying less but getting more. Okay, let's take an example so that you could understand it more better. This is a producer who is producing a thing of worth rupees 50, putting 20 rupees profit and selling it for rupees 100. Now what is happening here? 50 was the utility, 20 was his profit, 100 was the full price. It means 70 minus 100, or you can say 100 minus 70, rupees 30 he is getting extra. Now this is the person who is buying the thing. Okay, how much he is paying? He is paying 100 rupees, but the utility was only about 50. It means more than or about 50 he has paid extra. Now I hope you have got the concept. Okay, 50 was the utility, 20 was his profit, final price was rupees 100. So in this case, including the profit, the total amount will be 50, which the producer get extra. Okay, because of this price and the utility. All right, now let's move forward. Question is, when there is an official change in the exchange rate of domestic currency, then it is called appreciation, depreciation, revaluation, and deflation. 30 seconds you have to answer this question. Your time starts now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Time's up. Correct answer is C. Okay. So basically, if we talk about the exchange rate, okay, then there are two types of currency. First is domestic currency. Second is foreign currency. Okay. Let me take an example. When we're talking about the rupees, then as an Indian, the rupees is a domestic currency. But when we're talking about the dollars or rubles, then they are the foreign currency. Okay. So the exchange rate is basically the ratio, like $1 is equal to 80 rupees. So it is 1:80. Okay. Similarly, 1 rupee is equal to 0.83 ruble. Okay. So it is 1:0.83. Okay. So the exchange rate is like how much domestic currency you have to pay to get how much foreign currency. Okay. In this case, you have to pay 80 rupees so that you will get $1. In this case, you have to pay 0.83 Indian rupees to get 1 ruble. Okay. So the revaluation is the appropriate term. Revaluation is a appropriate term. Appreciation condition is comes when you have to pay less domestic currency, DC in short, to get more foreign currency, FC in short. In case of ruble, because you are paying rupees 0.83 and you are getting 1 ruble. Okay. Similarly, depreciation is a condition when you have to pay more domestic currency to get less foreign currency. So if you have to pay rupees 80 to get just $1. Okay. Revaluation is basically the change in the exchange rate. Okay. And deflation is lower general price level. Okay. I hope now it is clear in your mind. Let's move forward. Sixth question we have. Inflation redistribute income and wealth in favor of pensioners, poor, middle class or rich. 30 seconds you have to answer and your time starts now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. The time's up. The correct answer is D. Inflation redistributes income and wealth in favor of the richer. Why? Because suppose if the price of a commodity goes high, then it's benefit whom? A consumer? Never. But the producer will get high profits. Okay. And the producer is rich persons. Okay. So that's why the inflation redistributes income and wealth in favor of the rich, because they are generally the producers who are getting more profits. Okay. And all these class belongs to the consumers. Okay. Now let's move forward. Seventh question we have. The fringe benefit tax was introduced in the budget of 2003 to 2004, 2004 to 2005, 2005 to 2006, 2006 to 2007. All right. So for this type of questions, you have 30 seconds to answer not 30, 20, because it's one word. Okay, and your time starts now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20. Your time's up. So the correct answer is C. So it was 2005 to 2006 when the fringe benefit tax was introduced. Okay. So what about the fringe benefit tax? What do we mean by it? Okay. So it is basically the tax owned by the employer to pay certain benefits to employee. Okay. Basically, if you talk about some large corporations or MNCs, multinational companies. Okay. So to attract more and more talented people towards their companies, they always provide health insurance, okay, house allowance, and various other types of amenities and benefits provided by them, okay, to retain their employees or to attract more employees to their company. But in order to providing these facilities to the employee, they have to pay certain taxes to the authorities, and these taxes are known as fringe benefit tax. It simply means tax owned by the employer to pay certain benefits to the employee. If the employer is providing these benefits to the employee, then he has to pay certain taxes to the authorities, which was introduced in the time period of 2005 to 2006. All right. Now let's move forward. Eighth question we have: the purchase of shares and bonds of Indian companies by foreign institutional investors is called FDI, foreign direct investment, PI, portfolio investment, NRI, non-resident Indian investment, or foreign indirect investment. All right. And just write it down clearly. It is non-resident Indian. Okay. For this type of question, 20 seconds you have to answer and your time starts now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20. Your time's up. So the correct answer is D, foreign indirect investment. Okay. Because they are not directly investing in your country, they are investing in the shares and bonds of Indian companies, which are generally listed in stock markets. Okay. Either National Stock Exchange, known as NSE, which enlists top 50 Indian companies. Okay. Or either as Bombay Stock Exchange, known as BSE, which comprise 30 Indian companies. Okay. So when the foreign institutional investors are buying the shares and bonds of these Indian companies, which are already listed in the Indian stock market, so they are not directly investing in the country. They are purchasing the shares and bonds of these countries so that these companies will use their money to invest in India. Okay, so that's why it's a indirect. Or you can say, just take an example, like this is a person. If he directly put rupees 50 lakh investment in India, then it's a direct investment. Okay, but now it's India. This person denotes an Indian company and this person was the investor. Besides putting 50 lakhs directly in the country, this person gave 50 lakhs to this Indian company and then this Indian company will invest this money in India. So it is a indirect investment. Okay. Now I hope it's clear in your mind. Now let's move forward. The ninth question we have: monopolist resorts to pull a price discrimination depending upon elasticity of supply, elasticity of demand, law of demand, or law of supply. 20 seconds you have to answer and your time starts now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20. Your time's up. So the correct answer is B. Elasticity of demand. Okay. So basically when we talk about the elasticity of supply, then it is a change in quantity demanded to change in price. Sorry, it's a change in quantity supplied to respect of change in price. Okay. Similarly, when we talk about the change in quantity demanded to change in price, then we are talking about elasticity of demand. Okay. Law of demand simply state that whenever the price will goes up, demand will comes down. Law of supply simply state that whenever the price goes up, supply will goes on because of the high profit aspects. Okay. So remember, whenever there is a monopolist resort to the price discrimination, then it's generally depend on the elasticity of demand, or you can say change in quantity demanded in respect of the change in price. Okay. Now let's move forward. The 10th question we have: economic planning is an essential feature of socialist economy, capitalist economy, mixed economy, or dual economy. 15 seconds you have to answer this question because it is in one go only. Okay. And your time starts now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th, 14th, 15th. Time's up. The correct answer is A. Okay. So economic planning is basically the planning of resources. Because whether it's man, money, machine, material, land, everything is limited in quantity. Okay. So the planning of resources simply means that there should be the equal distribution amongst the people so that they may have equal outcome. Okay. It is the socialist economy ideology. Whereas the capital economy states that let the people free and market forces of demand and supply will decide how the resources should be distributed. Okay. And the mixed economy is basically the concept of both socialist and capitalist. Okay. Now I hope it's clear in your mind. Now let's move forward. The 11th question we have: Rashtriya Bird Ayog RBA is slated with drought and floods, poverty, elevation, floods and disaster management. 20 seconds you have to answer. Your time starts now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20. The time's up. The correct answer is C. Floods. Okay. If you look at it, this word, then basically it's a bard. Bard. Okay. And we call bard in English as a flood. Okay. So that's why the Rashtriya Bard Ayog is related with floods. Okay. Now let's move forward. Low cost housing is an example for mixed want, social wants, private wants, merit wants. 15 seconds you have to answer and your time starts now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th, 14th, 15th, the time's up. So the correct answer is merit bonds. Okay, the merit bonds basically are the criteria of eligibility. Okay, so basically low cost housing is provided to some target people who are eligible to get this benefit, or you can say who cannot afford house. Okay, so for those people basically this low cost housing is proposed. Okay, now let's move forward. 13th question we have, consumption for the sake of enjoying social acknowledgement is called rational consumption, social consumption, conspicuous consumption, demonstration consumption. Very easy question. 15 seconds time you have. Time starts now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th, 14th, 15th. The time's up. The correct answer is conspicuous consumption. Okay, it basically like when you are spending money not for need or utilization but for obstination, or you can say just for showing the people that you are rich or you having the capacity to buy that things. Okay, so that's why this is called the conspicuous consumption, because you are buying the things which are not of your use but you are buying them for just only demonstration or to get the social acknowledgement. Okay, now the 14th question we have, of the following economists, whom do you consider to be the master of partial analysis? It's a one go question. 15 seconds I am giving you. Okay, just we have to know the answer and your time starts now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th, 14th, 15th. Your time's up. So answer is B. Alfred Marshall was the person who gave the concept of partial analysis. Okay, now let's move forward. 15th question we have, India making double taxation avoidance agreement, in short DTAA, with other countries for the promotion of bilateral trade, external commercial borrowings, foreign direct investors, foreign institutional investment. 20 seconds you people have to answer this question and your time starts now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20. The time's up. So basically the correct answer is bilateral trade. Okay. So basically double taxation principle means like if there are two countries, A countries and B countries. Okay. And if they have the people who want to do the trade. Okay. If I'm paying tax in A, again I'm paying tax in B, then what will happen? My profit margin will be less because the internal cost of the commodity will be higher. Just take an example. If the manufacturing cost is 100 rupees, in country A the tax was 20, in country B again the tax was 20, so already my price is somewhere 140. If I put rupees 10 as my profit, then the price will be 150. Okay, and if we looked at their domestic market of A and B, then the price will be less, about 100, because they are only paying the tax to the one country because they are not expecting their goods to another country. Okay, but what happens because of this? Many investment which could come in India is not coming, because why I'm selling the product at 150 and paying these taxes when I know that the same product is being sold in their domestic market for rupees 100. Okay, the buyer will go for it, will not come for it. Okay, so to avoid this kind of thing, India signed DTAA with some countries, which means that A and B, again the countries. B countries is India. Okay. If the person or the trader from A wants to sell some goods to B, means India, then he has to pay tax only to one place, which is A. Okay, simply means that 100 was the production cost. Now I have to pay tax to the A only. Then 20 rupees will be the tax. Then 20 rupees will be my profit. So 140 will be the price. In this scenario, my profit is 20. In the previous scenario, my profit is 10. Why my profit is increased? Because the tax rate is going down. Okay. So that was the functioning of the DT doubling. Okay. So students, in this lecture, we have finished the economics part. In the next lecture, we will start with the general science. Till then, just revise all the facts and figures we have discovered and we have covered in this lecture, and also be ready for the another lecture. Okay. With this note, let's end this session and thank you.